Welcome to Season 4 of the Questions With podcast, hosted by Quest Ventures, the top venture capital fund in Asia. I am your host, April Vano, and join me as we explore the dynamic startup ecosystem and business landscape in the Philippines. As we listen to thought leaders and industry experts, innovators, and entrepreneurs, we'll uncover the stories, insights, and trends across different industries shaping the future of this vibrant Southeast Asian nation. Today, we have with us Pia Bernal, a key player in the Philippine startup ecosystem and an advocate for innovation and entrepreneurship. Pia is a strategic partnerships manager at Kickstart Ventures, where she supports business development of their portfolio companies. Her work involves not only investing in and supporting founders in their journey, but Pia has also been a key figure in the Philippine startup ecosystem as a community builder, bridging connections for startups and innovators. With a strong background in business development and a deep understanding of the startup landscape, Pia has been instrumental in driving the growth of early-stage companies in the Philippines. Her insights and expertise have helped many entrepreneurs navigate the challenges of building a business, making her a respected figure in the industry. In this episode, we'll explore Pia's experiences in venture capital, her perspective on the evolving startup scene in the Philippines, and the critical role that mentorship and support play in the success of new ventures. Through her stories, we'll gain valuable insights into what it takes to build and sustain a thriving startup in today's competitive market. Hello, Pia. Welcome to Questions With podcast. Can you say hi to everyone?
Hi, April. Thank you so much for this opportunity to sit down with you, hang out, and chat about our favorite things in the startup ecosystem, as well as share with you and your audience what we've been doing and what can your listeners learn from them if there are some nuggets to what we do that can help them in their own journeys. So just a bit of an introduction of myself. I know April has done a wonderful job of introducing me. So I'm employee number 1 at Kickstart. When we were founded in March 2012, I joined in September, a few months after getting the globe approval. And what I continue to enjoy since joining in 2012 is really building bridges between startups and the people in the community, connecting them to the resources and contacts that they need. And always central to that is making sure that there is alignment in profit and purpose, which is at the heart of strategic partnerships. So which brings us to today. So I'm in my third role, strategic partnerships manager. And thank you. Happy to get started and answer your questions.
Thank you, Pia. Yes, welcome. And you shared, right, employee number 1, and you've been there from the very beginning. And I'd like to share also that Kickstart Ventures is one of the, if not the first, corporate VC and ecosystem builder also in the Philippines. So you have seen the development and the evolution of the ecosystem here in the Philippines. So it will be very interesting to hear your story and your insights and the kinds of I would say transformations that you've seen, not just the big picture, but also really zoomed into like the entrepreneurs along the way. So maybe circling back, right? Can you share your own journey? You shared when you joined. We kind of know all that, but
I landed in this role.
Yeah, but how did that really happen, right? What inspired you to pursue a career in this industry, and when and how you ended up joining Kickstart at the very beginning?
Happy to. So in 2011, the new business group of Globe Telecom, which is headed by Mineta Varete, the president of Kickstart Ventures, was looking at education as a new revenue stream for the company. And I happened to be the owner of the education portfolio at Globe, but from a corporate social responsibility lens. So boots on the ground, working closely with the public education system to understand the underlying issues, the stakeholders' frustrations, challenges, and working with private sector partners to deliver solutions. And So on that, so I started to roll out programs in education from Globe that will suit our target stakeholders. And then, so working with Minette, Dan Ziazon, and Christian Bessler, who became the founders of Kickstart Ventures, for several months, working on that education pitch to the Globe board, no, to the Ayala senior leadership, introduced me to what it takes to build a business. You know, problem solution fit, product market fit, go to market strategy. And I wanted more of it because my CSR portfolio at Globe has always been limited to proof of concepts. What are the new things that we can do using telco services for public good? So that included, you know, the early days of mHealth, eHealth, agriculture, social safety nets for at-risk groups, etc. And in a way, the corporate climate back then wasn't conducive to proof of concept. So I was getting frustrated. So fast forward to 2012, Minette, Dan, and Christian's pitch Kickstart Ventures to the Globe board was approved. And I basically just said, I messaged one of them and said, hey, can I join?
Oh, wow.
Really all it is. So which makes me employee number one, because I raised my hand and I pitched myself to them and said, because my profile wasn't your typical, you know, really steep or swimming in business development. I was corporate social responsibility, but because I knew how to move between stakeholders, what conversations need to happen, meeting of minds. So because, you know, startups and investing are new grounds that we were breaking back then. It was, you know, there was no playbook. We could create our own. So that's basically the history of my joining Kickstart. I pitched myself to Minette, Dan, and Christian, and just basically said, can I join?
That's amazing. I mean, you know, they say, right? Like, is there a seat on the table? If not, you grab one.
Yeah, exactly.
And put yourself there. And it's amazing. And, you know, I think, as mentioned earlier, you have seen the evolution and the transformation of the ecosystem. And I guess it also reflected in the roles that you took through your journey with Kickstart. So, you know, I'm going to ask about what you do now, but maybe a little backtrack or just in continuation from your beginning.
Yeah.
Like, vis-a-vis what you've seen or what you saw as the need, right? As you said, in the early days or the early stages of Philippine startups or, you know, the ecosystem building. How did that look like also in the role that you had to take and be a part of for Kickstart's journey?
Okay, so the way I started, because my background, I was experienced in selling social impact advocacies and agendas to various stakeholders, which I executed through partnerships and proof of concepts. I said, okay, I think I can apply this in the startup ecosystem, but for profit. So that's the difference between my former role and in my Kickstart role. The other one was not for profit, but this one's a for profit. And my journey in the startup ecosystem has been a roller coaster ride, because if I start explaining it from my current role, what I will say is, as a strategic partnerships manager, you know, I seek out partners whose interests align with the vision, values, and business strategy of the companies that we invested in. And in the same way that startups are always hungry for partnerships, that's what I do and still do, even from the beginning up to now. Because as an ecosystem builder, startups thrive when there's community support, because they need different types of support at different stages of their life. So they would benefit from a rich, pool of contacts and resources to tap into. And that has been the most enjoyable part of my role, even from the beginning as ecosystem builder startup. It hasn't changed, basically. We talk about it from then until now, because we are still, others like to call it, we're still a nascent industry. Di ba? In a way, we're a little beyond nascent because we've started to produce really good startups. But again, it brings back to when they move from one stage to the next, is there a support system that they can approach? And usually that's where, introductions, partnerships can come in. So my role as community manager, as ecosystem builder, is still a valid one. And I think it's a underappreciated role, even in other organizations, other VCs. It's interesting, April, that you actually, I'm starting to see more and more VCs create roles that are for ecosystem and community management.
That's true.
And so because when we started this when we formalized the role in 2016 or 17, I think we were just one of the few in Southeast Asia that had a community manager role. Now,
Correct.
I see it everywhere.
It has to be part.
It has to be part.
team.
It's not a nice to have. It is an integral part of an organization. So yeah, I hope that satisfies your question.
Of course, but I was actually waiting for one other thing that you started, and I continue to really look as a great, I would say, place to converge the entire ecosystem. Maybe for those who actually don't know this, right? And listeners who have not been to the Philippines are not familiar with the Philippine ecosystem. If there's one place or one event to get to meet the right people, it would actually be your Kickstart's event, Raid the Fridge. I don't know, you said community builder. You have an interesting name also for that. Maybe we take a bit of time if you can share, like,
oh sure,
this community event and this, like you said, the effort of building community as an integral part of the work that you do.
Okay, so I didn't say it at the start, but I am also the fridge master for Kickstart Ventures. So what it means literally is I host a monthly mixer for the startup community, where we welcome them to our place. We offer beers and food and just really encourage conversations, introductions to happen amongst the attendees. And all you have to do is to invest time to attend, like commit and show up, because it saddens me actually when someone I meet later is looking for so and so and asks me, and I would say, you know what, the person you're looking for was actually just at Raid the Fridge. Why did you not go? So and that's one of the things, my personal advocacy is like, we have to move away from the spoon feeding mentality. Just if in the same way that you show up for a pitch meeting, you show up at a community event because maybe your next partner, your next co-founder, your next high-value employee, your next commercial client will be there. And it has happened many times with the attendees at Raid the Fridge. So it is the longest running startup mixer today in the Philippines. We started it in August 2012. It was formerly named, how very boring of us, Kickstart Startup Mixer. And then because we treated it like a product, you have the alpha stage, the beta stage, and now it's the main product. We were testing. So when we started, we were only attracting an audience of 50 to 60, and we grew it by word of mouth. And one of the ways that we may grow, one of the ways we grew it was by creating a habit for the community. We said we will own the last Thursday of the month for Raid the Fridge, so that regardless of what you're doing, where you are, if it's the last Thursday of the month, you can go to Kickstart and do networking and some learning in the process. So just show up. That's all you have to do. It's free. So there's really nothing for you to spend on, just your time and an interest to learn. And you don't have to be the most extroverted member of the audience. But if you don't try it out, you lose nothing. You know, if you don't like it, then we're not forcing you to attend, but just try it out. In the same way that in the ethos of the founders is you serve yourself, you check it out, you try it, and if it's not for you, you walk away.
Yeah, that's true. You have to be proactive as well. I mean, if entrepreneurs or we are innovators and also partners, right, who want to work with or partner with the local startups, then that's definitely, you know, the kind of mindset you want to encourage.
And also, because you've committed to doing it every month, then the responsibility is, the stakes for being responsible is higher. So we wanted to make sure that the topics we organize are really relevant for the audience that you're serving, the startups, the founders. So we wanted to make sure that the content is good quality so that they come back. And then when they come back, they bring more people. So, and by that design, the RTF Rate the Fridge community is organically growing. And that's, we've been lucky enough to be holding our 137th this month on January 30. So to anyone who's listening, please just visit Raid the Fridge or Kickstart Ventures at Luma and you'll find it. It's listed there, and we're featuring an economist, June Neri, and he will talk about the macro trends for 2025 that I think any entrepreneur who's running a business should know more about, so that they can know what are the trends, what are the headwinds to expect in 2025, so that you as a business owner will be able to navigate the year so much better.
That's wonderful. I mean, I've always looked forward to, joining Raid the Fridge whenever I can. And as you said, save the date. Like if you plan, if you're not always in Manila, right? Or if you're just visiting, plan it around the last week of the month, because for sure you'll hit jackpot and meeting several really brilliant people in the community if you just show up at Raid the Fridge. So thanks for that, Pia. And I know, there's a lot of things that you do, with your role, but I also want to take some time for you to share the work you do, as you mentioned, right? That's underappreciated or sometimes in the shadows, where you're actually, working closely with your portfolio companies, right? With your founders post-investment, right? Because sometimes VCs are like, yeah, we see or we know there's a VC around, they'll come to you for the investment, right? But what happens next, right? Like, of course, at Quest, we also have a lot of these programs and initiatives for our portfolio, and it's very important to give support. We are with the founders in their journey throughout, right? So how does that look like? What does that entail for you?
I have one word for that. I'm a concierge of startups.
Oh.
So
because whatever partner, whoever they need to know to meet, they'll ask you.
So basically, concierge, like they tell us what their wish list, what they want to do, what they need, and our remit is to help them find it. And that's basically the heart of the portfolio support, one of the portfolio support that we offer to our investees. So the post-investment support includes capability building. So if there are workshops or founder clinics that are needed by them, we organize them. And then there are, of course, yung market access. So we actually shamelessly open our personal and business connections for our founders. So we ask them, even if it's like a moonshot, just tell us who you want to meet. Maybe we'll meet someone who knows that person. Diba? So just be shameless in asking is typically what we say. So that's market access. And then and this is closer to my heart, the ecosystem engagement. So it is allowing our investees a space, giving them a space to basically become more visible and visible. So whether it's extending to them invitations, it's as simple as that, extending invitations to events that they were not invited to, but we feel strongly would benefit them. So we will extend it to them. And if there's an opportunity for them to speak at an event, we will ask the organizer, instead of Kickstart Ventures, can it be our founder? Because your topic is more suited for this founder because they have thought leadership or deep expertise in that space. So we shamelessly harness ecosystem activities for the benefit of our portfolio companies. Just really at the end of the day, it's to give them more visibility and a space to establish thought leadership. So parang that's the soft sell of themselves. So if people around them realize, oh, so this founder isn't the expert in AI, so maybe I'll approach them, pick their brains on my interest in AI. And then if there are business opportunities out of that, that's on them. So kami, we're your gateway. So essentially, we try to serve as the gateway for the startups for anything that they need. Not a gatekeeper, but a gateway.
Yeah, definitely. Opening doors is sometimes, like you said, underappreciated, or you undervalue it at the beginning, and then it's only like in hindsight, like, oh my gosh, it's because this person, opened the door or made that introduction that kind of flowed in, the next steps or the development. So I think, again, whether it's, like you mentioned, like a concierge wish list for founders, or just, bringing people together in the same place and giving them the opportunity to really like mix and, talk to each other and connect is very valuable already for any business or for any entrepreneur.
Yes.
So I mean, I want to zoom out a little bit, right? With you talked about the different kinds of portfolio companies you have. They, like you said, they have thought leadership in different sectors, and I'm sure in your portfolios through the years you have seen the changes also in the Philippines, right? So what are your thoughts, right, on the current state of the startup ecosystem?
Oh my God, thank you for asking this.
And like, what are the opportunities that you see and maybe even challenges, right? Because this is now next generation, I would say, right, for the Philippines. So what is that? Like, what's your take on it?
So I'm glad that you asked this because, having been an ecosystem builder for so long, whenever I'm asked, like, how has the community changed? I have a favorite answer for that. I always say that, there's this thing called the 5 stages of group development by Tuckman. I don't know who Tuckman is, but it was shared to me before. And when it was shared to me, I'm like, oh my God, that just makes so much perfect sense. So in Tuckman's 5 stages of group development, it's forming, storming, norming, performing, and adjourning. I would say that our startup ecosystem today is now in the performing stage. There's less hand-holding because we now have experienced startup founders. There are now more experienced C-suite employees. Yung mga, they're on their 5th startup employment. So they've seen it all. They know what the nuances and the cadences and the challenges are, as well as investors, who are more experienced, and then established enablers or support system. So we've seen the whole gamut of it, from the well-meaning that eventually fizzled out to the newer ones who are more experienced, having seen the lessons from before. And as such, because I now think of our ecosystem as in the performing stage, there is an expectation of these startups to perform, to show impact or value, because this is not our first rodeo. Diba? Parang we've been around since 2012, where it started as a rebellious pocket of developer communities coalescing into a wider group with shared interest, hence startup community. So we already know there are now norms, there are now distinct leaders, there are now decision makers. The government has a better understanding of what startup is all about. It's not an MSME. It is an MSME, but That's
different
the point.
breed.
It's a different breed. They don't operate like an MSME.
Correct.
So we're now expected to perform. The startups are expected to perform because we're not a new community anymore. And especially today in a post-pandemic economy where digital is the norm, especially in a market of like the Philippines where digital adoption, especially for e-wallet, is higher. It's really now a chance for businesses to grow themselves by being able to ride the wave really well. Tapos, and because we're now performing and more members of the ecosystem are used to startups, there's no more reason for them not to work with startups. So it's really up to you on how you present yourself, show value, and then get that partnership that will help your company grow. So really, performing is what I would say describes the community today. Tapos na yung we're all testing.
Very early stage, nascent stage.
We should now start to show results, essentially.
Correct. And I think you mentioned that, right? Like it's also in the lens of, let's say, stakeholders looking and working with the startups. I think there is already that level of understanding, but also maturity of working together. We don't see, or we're not looking at startups just as amateur people in business, but they are at a level that will serve, right? That the value that you're offering will serve the purpose that you need as a business or as a client and as a customer. So the expectation also is there, right? Like it's not that you're a startup, so yeah, it's okay if your service is so, right? It's no longer like you have to be at best even better than everyone else for you to be to be in the lead, right? So
tsaka from a strategic from the lens of my current role, strategic partnerships. In the early days, parang the partnerships were low-hanging fruit, diba? Startup to startup. Startup to startup ecosystem enablers. Now it has to be that it's now expected that you can partner with a corporate, with a larger enterprise, with government as a commercial partner, not as a freebie, but actually serving the needs of those institutions, organizations, and get paid for it. So, and that's a good change. It means the understanding and acceptance of the nature of the business of startups have widened. And so it's really just now a matter of, the business fundamentals. Does my product hold water? Does it meet the needs of your organization? The pricing, the customer support. So we're in that stage already.
Yeah, I'm seeing, let's say, a bit of a parallel also on another aspect or another area, which I think coming from the story you were sharing, you were part of, CSR and creating products and services for the public good prior to joining Kickstart, right? Let's talk about, sustainability also and, creating that impact. And you mentioned earlier, right, that the expectation now also of startups or businesses to create, a significant impact already in the stage that they're in. So, when we look at the sustainability, it's not an industry, right? I think it's more of like, a movement and a mindset. Right? And it's not just startups, right? It's generally in doing business, even in running, in governance, in education, etc. It's also taken center stage now. And I think the intersection with technology and innovation is quite timely. If not, we need it. Right? Hopefully this is the best time to take these opportunities and that convergence. So what do you see, at least for the Philippines, right? The promising areas for innovation and growth, and maybe coming from your portfolio or for the ones that you're, keeping an eye out.
So my view is, given the background that I have, there's really no singular sector nor industry in the Philippines that holds a monopoly on sustainability, because the way I view it, sustainability should be part of the business operations. And I've thought about this. Parang, why is it so hard for most people to understand sustainability? Part of the blame is we've jargonized it so much that people don't have an ability to immediately grasp or wrap their head around sustainability. At the end of the day, it's really just about aligning your profit and purpose. And how does that gets translated into business processes where you're able to, sustain the resources that you're using to earn profit from it, and how everyone will be able to benefit from it, without harming anyone. So it's a tricky balance, but it can be done. I've seen it done. I've done it. So it's really just a matter of committing to it, because it's not easy. Whether you're an MSME, you're a startup, or a large enterprise, it's integrating sustainability into your business is not an easy journey, but it's not impossible. You just have to commit to doing it, because it does require asking yourself tough questions. Like, so why am I in this business for again? Is it really purely for profit, or do I really want to show I care about my stakeholders, my shareholders? And that's my view. So really, there is no size of the business in the Philippines. There is, regardless of sector or industry, that can't do it. They would be able to do it. It's just that you have to commit to it. And what else should I say? So basically, that's my pet peeve with sustainability, is like, we've jargonized it so much that the understanding of it is not as fast as we would want it. Yeah. Does that answer your question, April?
Yeah, I mean, I agree, actually, also being, I would say, more exposed, right? Or more involved in this space, you do tend to feel like it has become its own bubble. And, what we need to do in order to get things done, or to move things forward, is to actually, burst everyone's bubble and actually start, cross-pollinating as much as you can, so that you can, actually create solutions together. And maybe, the question that I had earlier, I mean, thank you for that. And I think that's a very good insight, and, a lesson that we need to, act on how we can be more inclusive towards, everybody being part of the sustainability journey. But I just wanted to know, right, maybe on a more specific specific lens, in terms of, for Philippines, what development areas do you think really needs more innovation, or needs more innovators to disrupt, right? Like, you did mention education. I think that's also part of from the very beginning, I guess, in your career, building on education as a very important area for development. But no, I guess that's your number one. But what would be number two, number three for Philippines? If if we have listeners that are considering, okay, where do I want to make an impact? What problem or what challenges do I want to solve and really dig into? And as you say, commit to building solutions for, what would that be for Philippines?
So, for as long, because Philippines is still considered a developing country, that means there are still systemic gaps in our society. And that typically is in the education side, on the basics, basically basic services side, health, education. Financial inclusion, not so much, because the pandemic has helped address that. People started to appreciate having banking the unbanked. And if they can go to a bank, then there's a solution. And we've seen that with the two telcos offering the solutions. And for me, the way I would suggest for startup founders who are, starting to. So basically, it's like this. Let me pull back. If I'm an entrepreneur thinking about where to put my money, I want to build a business. What sector should I bring it? Should I park my money on? Create a business. And it's a business that should be able to serve the at-risk members of society. My advice, unsolicited advice, is don't operate in a vacuum. All you have to do is really spend some time reading through the Philippine Development Plan of the country.
That's practical, very smart and very practical.
No, because we've done it in CSR, and I'll tell you why. When I was doing corporate social responsibility prior to Kickstart, whenever it's budgeting season and we have to figure out which sectors or issues that need our money the most, what we do is we check in with the government. What are what's the agenda of the government under the Philippine Development Plan that you want the private sector to pour resources into? And then they would say, oh, we need help in education. In education, what is it? Is it basic education? Is it higher education? In health, is it on nutrition? Is it on hunger? So what is it? So in the same way that I would advise entrepreneurs who's thinking about where to put their money is for you to be able to not operate in a vacuum. If it interests you and to anchor it on a national need, then do it. And one of the sources that you can do that is by looking at the Philippine Development Plan 2023 to 2028. And when you browse it, the first thing that you would see is it says there, modernize agriculture and agribusinesses. And that's why in recent months, I have been to more than a few public-private sector conferences, dialogues, where the focus is agri. And what is the role of agri-tech? So if I'm an entrepreneur wanting to be able to earn and help the country at the same time, then maybe I should be in the agri-business side, in agri-tech. So that's what I mean. So what we took for granted in CSR is actually applicable in the startup space. Unless na lang, there's a business that you really want to do, regardless of national issues, then go ahead. But my advice, if you really want to be able to contribute to the sustainability movement in the country, the first place that you can start with is looking at what issues, national issues, that are really priority, that are the priorities of the government, and what can you do to contribute to it. And that's my advice. So now it's agri, so agri-tech, agribusiness. So I was in a recent dialogue with FAO, and they were really trying to understand, like, what are the challenges from the demand side and the supply side, and where is, like, for example, Sarisuki, what are they doing to address bringing food from farm to table? So things like that. It helps to be able to be sensitive to the issues that the government is prioritizing.
Yeah, I mean, I'm really, I guess it's going back to basics. I think I was trying to find the words, right? The key insight from that. Thank you, because that's right? It's like, don't be an innovator or entrepreneur that's coming with a flashy solution or something that's cool. And that's fine, especially when it's also like just discovering new inventions and innovations. But at the heart of it, it's you should be a problem solver, and whatever technology, whatever innovation there is to be made, and also a business where money is to be made, right? Is where you address someone's problem, right? And someone's challenges. And I guess I couldn't agree more with what you said about agriculture.
One of the things I wanted to say is, whenever I, or in a conversation comes up, the word government, people will say, oh, that's such a complicated thing. And I've learned in my work in CSR that government is not the enemy. Make them your friends. Try to understand at least. And just figure out a way on how you can work with them or the system in a way that doesn't hold you back. Because we've been used to treating government, they're so hard to deal with, ang tagal ng bayad, etc. That's part and parcel of it. But if you're really interested in contributing to the overall solution of these systemic issues that never seem to get solved, then it behooves you to at least check, okay, what's the plan of the government to make us an innovation country? If the PDP document says agriculture, it means there are a lot of gaps, and gaps means opportunities for entrepreneurs.
That's true. And you can be, a partner, right? And do business while, addressing these challenges. And I'm taking down like that list of, I guess advice on either someone still exploring and maybe considering doing business in the Philippines or having a startup to look into, the PDP. And actually, you already gave the tip that number one priority is agriculture and food security. And I think that's an entire different episode, perhaps, Pia, to even dive into that. But definitely a lot of, I would say, support is also and attention being given to agriculture and food security. And I think that's not just even Philippines, right? I think that's everywhere, because at the end of the day, everyone needs to eat. So we gotta make sure we do that.
Yeah, because the benefit of knowing what national issues are priority for the government means they are also lining up the proper support for you to be able to deliver the solution. So they will be more open to conversations, be more open to experimentation, be more open to testing that. Issues that used to be a problem for startup founders in the early days, but now that because they understood how digital and technology can be a game changer, it's really up to you to be able to find your place in that whole conversation and, run away with it towards success. Is what I would say.
No, I was just thinking, like, knowing your background and your experience in, stakeholder management and building relationships, that's probably not a podcast, but like a master class with Pia. So watch out for that. I don't know if that's going to happen, but maybe just to kind of, I wanted also, before we wrap things up, right? You've given quite practical, very insightful advice just now and over the last couple of minutes. But perhaps, I'll put it into two-prong, question, because I wanted, more advice, but it's really more like being in this space or being an entrepreneur is definitely, a choice, I would say, a choice where you enter a lot of, challenges right from the get-go. But you've also seen how, the resilience and, how founders or teams have sustained, right, themselves. Like, what do you see, right, are the good qualities, or like what advice, right, do you give to founders so that they can really sustain in their journey as entrepreneurs? And maybe, of course, I wanted to also inject, right, like not just entrepreneurs, but also ecosystem builder, ecosystem builders or community builders like yourself, the people that are working, in the support system, right? Because again, it is an ecosystem. It's not just the entrepreneurs, but also the support system around. So there are people that are important to sustain right? The community. So what would be your pieces or nuggets of advice to have that kind of motivation and continuous, I guess, resilience in doing what you do?
So my advice, it would be, you don't have to do, it doesn't have to be a lonely work. You can benefit from a network of like-minded individuals that are present in startup community. My colleague Jackie Palaez said it well in his last Trade the Fridge. When you're a startup founder, lean on your support system. You have investors in your cap table. Check in with them and check in regularly or often. It doesn't have to be a meeting. It doesn't have to be a one-on-one conversation. Even if there's no issue, just check in. We sometimes undervalue the impact of mental health amongst founders. And I think today, people think it's a cute thing to avoid mental health discussions. But it's one of the best things that you can do for yourself and for your business, is just to check in regularly with the people that you trust. Maybe the problem that you're experiencing is not that severe or not too severe. Maybe just talking it through, and just be present and be tactical in where you should be present in. You don't have to be everywhere, but choose wisely where you should go, who you should connect to. And the other thing that I would say as a tip to people in the startup ecosystem in the Philippines, if you don't find it, build it. If there's no community of, say, women in tech, there's like only a few, for example, then start one. It doesn't have to be a finely crafted group or community. Just get it started, and it will organically grow. It will take you to different things. But what's important is you found like-minded individuals. So in the same way that, in the startup ethos, if it's not there, build it. So in the same way, for community ecosystem, for community, if the community is not present, then create one. You don't have to ask for permission. Just do it. And then wala ka namang inuutangan eh. So, for people listening, you don't have to borrow money for it. If all it takes is just creating you have to be mindful about creating support systems. If that's through a community, a small group, a big group. Also be mindful of when you do that, in the sense that it has to be intentional. It's not a hangout. Yeah. There has to be a purpose for it. And when you run it, for example, if you're the organizer, you don't waste their time, because that's time away from their startup. So if you're going to invite people to something, to do fellowship, to connect, be intentional about it. There's a purpose. This is what we will discuss. Whatever comes out of it, that's great. But we're coming here for a distinct purpose, and we want to talk about something specific, and let's see where it will take us. Parang don't overthink it, but don't make it too loose naman.
That's true.
It discourages more people from
lack
joining.
Of clarity,
Yeah. So parang there will be naysayers, and that's perfectly fine, diba? I mean, in the stages of group development, naysayers, disbelievers, that's part and parcel of it. But if you're clear about what you want to do, just create one. And that's basically how we also approach Trade the Fridge. There was a platform that was needed for founders, and they were not doing it because it's a little expensive. Someone has to pay for the beers, for the food. And we said, We have budget. Let's do it. Let's give it to them. But it's not a platform for us to sell ourselves. It's a platform for them to find each other, to meet each other and connect and to talk. Side benefit yung them meeting Kickstart. So parang we give them a space and then create a habit out of it. And so the community really grew Raid the Fridge. And we're just happy to be the one, being the master of ceremonies or the fridge
the
master.
host, the host and giving space for everyone to gather. That's again one big contribution, and I really think that more spaces, right? Like I was gonna ask, like, from that audience of entrepreneurs for your sort of advice. I wanted to also ask you to like wear your hat, as coming from the private sector, like for those who don't know, Kickstart is a corporate VC from one of the big conglomerates in the Philippines. And that is also another pillar that needs to be strengthened in the ecosystem to create more industry leaders as partners, as stakeholders, supporters, investors in growing more startups and encouraging entrepreneurship. So you've shared a lot already. I think it's not even just sharing, you're already doing it, right? You're leading by example through what you do at Kickstart. But maybe as a key message, whether it's being a VC or just like you said, giving a space for entrepreneurs to huddle. You did mention, thank you, about really also building communities for women, because that's also definitely something that needs more nurturing and more support. But how do you see more businesses, right? Large enterprise or even other, let's say, medium to large businesses take part and be a contributor, right, to the growing startup ecosystem?
Thank you for that. So one of the ways that we found effective for engaging corporates, starting with the Ayala Group conglomerate, because for the listeners, Kickstart Ventures is a subsidiary of Globe Telecom, which is part of the Ayala Group, which is also part of the Singtel Group. So we do have that direct relationship with the corporates. And because when we started, they didn't really understand what tech startups are all about. So what we did was, in the process of engaging them, we found that all it takes is just constant invitation makes a difference. Don't expect them to show up the first time you invite them. Just keep inviting, keep engaging. One day they will be at the point where they're going through a digital transformation and they need support systems. And then they'll come to you and say, oh, we need this and that. Can you help us? So that's why whenever we're asked, what do you do for your LPs, for your principals, diba? We say we're a landing pad for corporates who are wanting to understand what this whole startups are all about. What do they? Because some of them don't even know what they look like. Like, I want to see what an startup founder look like, diba? Parang, so that's why we always invite them to Raid the Fridge. That's what a startup founder looks like. Those are the issues that he or she has to go through in the process of growing the business. They're a real company. They're not a fake company. And they have employees and they're capable. Just give them a chance. So creating a community event where you explicitly invite corporates to learn, not to sell to, means you're creating a space for better understanding of what value tech startups can bring to the table and what corporates can bring to the startup. So it's a shared, it's a complementary relationship. So remember, startups have the agility, have the tech expertise, diba? Corporates offer distribution, access to customers, channels. You both need each other. So
The synergy needs to happen.
Oo. So it will be nice to kick things off by just creating a space for these two to meet and just keep inviting them. Don't get frustrated if they don't show up. One day they will show up. Kasi they will, nafo-FOMO yan eh. And
They want to be part of the community too.
Oo. So you just have to be sensitive to what their needs are and don't force the solution or the, whatever you have in your head that might be useful for them. Just listen to them, be sensitive to what they need. And when you do find yourself having what exactly they need, then go back to them. So that's been a playbook that has helped me well over the years. I keep track or keep note of company A, company B was looking for this. Wala akong alam at the time. And then I meet someone. Oh, there's this, expert on this. Do you still need it? Then you go back. And it's a slow, it can be fast, it can be slow, depending on how exposed they are to the Philippine startup ecosystem. But at least be mindful of creating a space that they can use as a landing pad. If that comes in the form of an event, then do it. Like invite them always, no expectations. Because you're also teaching them how we tackle and describe issues and how startups are addressing it. So you're like teaching kindergartens. This is how things are discussed, addressed, solved by startups. Is that for you? If no, then let us know what works for you.
Yeah, no, I think that's that's very practical, and I think in terms of the convergence or the synergy that we're looking for and the cross-pollination, I think it starts right with the openness, right? To want to listen and to engage, and like you said, no promises or no expectations at the beginning, but just showing up and being able to share what it is that you do and listening to what others also can do, and whether right there and then there's a good match or there's something that can be done right away together or maybe later on, which that's how relationships are also formed and nurtured anyway.
I have a perfect example for it and just came to my mind. Media. So back in the day, our frustration was when they do coverage of the Philippine startup space, they get the jargons wrong. They describe it wrong. Remember, they describe someone as a unicorn, not realizing what unicorn really means for a VC and for startups. And what the middle ground that we found was, and this is me wearing my Fridge Master hat, is we started inviting them to raid the fridge, not to cover, but as guests. Because by always inviting them to raid the fridge sessions, it allows them to see who are the faces, who are the faces behind startups, investors. What are they thinking, how they talk, what are the issues that they care most about. And the raid the fridge is a perfect platform because it's a melting pot of these different ecosystem players. And the program that we set up for the evening is it allows them to do a deep dive into, for example, when it's about e-commerce. So how is one startup addressing e-commerce, and what are the issues? If it's logistics tech, how are they approaching it? And by that route, they're now being educated on how us in this space discuss it, cover it. They'll begin to learn the language. And so when they go back to their desks and write about it, they get it right the first time. So that's why whenever before we would invite press and they would say, oh, why would you invite press? Because our discussion is going, no. They're there as guests. They're not there to cover because you want them to also understand the space that you're in. so that when they're ready to write about it, it's a correct writing.
Yeah, and it
Yeah.
actually shares the message to their larger audience, which is beneficial for the whole community, that we get that exposure from the media. And I agree, right? Like it does take also some handholding, and like you said, kind of like a 101 for different stakeholders that are new, whether it's media or other large enterprises, where they just need to get their feet wet. And we also want to welcome them in, because at the end of the day, we do need them, right? We these stakeholders, and the better they understand the community, the better they understand how things work, then they will also be able to take a look at, okay, what's in my chest? What can I also bring? Be a part of it, because I think even for, we're not pressed, right? This is a podcast. Thank you to our listeners that are tuning in. But this is our way of telling the stories of the startup community. And the more we share it, the more people talk about it, then there's a better understanding. And, I don't want to use the word mainstreaming. Sometimes that could be a good thing or not so good thing. But what we do need is that more people would be interested, right, to getting more involved and to support this, this growing economy, or at least this growing industry for Filipino entrepreneurs.
Yeah, because I remember previously when I was preparing for strategic planning, and parang what is my hope for the Philippine startups. I remember writing down that I would like to see one day where the share of the startups in the Philippine GDP is really high, because it's always been the BPO sector, diba? I would want one day to see that one of the biggest contributor is coming from the tech startup space.
I agree, and I look forward to seeing that too. I share that dream with you, Pia, and perhaps maybe we wrap up on that note, right? That ambition towards seeing how Philippine startups become a significant contributor to the growth of the Philippine economy. And we see it, in terms of like the past few years. As you said, we see it performing already. And I think we are at the turning point. And with the support of companies and like larger, let's say, institutions, government, private sector, and customers even, right, and other partners, I'm sure we'll get there. And I appreciate you giving your insights. Thank you for what you do, Pia. I mean, and of course for Kickstart being one of the, I would say, trailblazers in the ecosystem. And I do hope that our listeners were picked up, like you said, some nuggets and insights about the Philippines.
I hope so too.
And about what you do, and how to actually kind of learn from, how do you call this, experiences from different startups as well. So again, thank you so much, Pia, for joining us.
My pleasure. Thank you for this opportunity again.
Yes,
I don't do
salamat.
this often, so I don't know. I hope I didn't go overboard.
No, obviously there's more to share, but maybe we'll talk and raid the fridge.
Yes.
But I guess I'll plug that one more time. Again, if in the Philippines or in Manila, that's the last Thursday of the month, right? So I do hope we see some of you listeners join us or meet us in person, join the Philippine startup community. In the meantime, thank you so much for tuning into this episode of Questions with Podcast. Today we have Pia Bernal of Kickstart Ventures. For more episodes like this, be sure to hit the follow button on whichever platform you're listening from. Thank you again. I am your host, April Ong Vano. Till next time.